Next, we're going to be working on this second level. Who are we? When is it? How much to attend? So within Tier 2, I'm going to put each box within a div. So we'll do this, and then copy this. I don't think there's necessarily a need to give each of them an ID. I can come back and do that if I need to, though. All right. And within this first section, we're going to add the Who Are We section. So I'll put that within an H3 tag. And if you remember, if we come to the web version, I've added these little icons. So in order to do a specific icon for each heading tag, I had to give it an ID. So I'm going to give an ID of Who Are We? And then I'm going to add an image, because each one of those boxes has an image below it. And this is going to be images/handshaking.jpg. You know, this isn't the most exciting stuff to watch, but I think it is important, especially if you're newer, to watch this stuff. And then finally, we're going to have some generic lip sum text. So I'm just going to copy that, like so. Come back to my document and paste it in right underneath my image. Okay. And if I scroll back, Visual Studio has a nice feature. If I select it, I can right-click and go to Format Selection. And then finally, you'll see here, this is something I didn't include on the Photoshop file, but I added this Read More section. And it's just a little hyperlink. Once again, that leads nowhere. So the way we did it in line is I just added, if we do it right here, I think I did right here. We could do a small, put it in a small tag, and click Read More. Let me see if I put in the periods. Nope, no periods. Okay, and that should take care of Who Are We. So now let's work on, let's just copy this. We know they're going to be very similar, so let's just copy and paste them into these other divs. Okay, and our next one is going to be when is it? And the third one is going to be how much to attend. How much to attend. So when is it? We're going to replace that with a calendar JPG, and then the how much is going to be coins.jpg. And just copy and paste some of this. And last, let's just replace the H3 tags. So this next one is when is it? And the final one, let's go back and see what I have here. What I did in my solution is, it looks like I gave this one an ID of third. I'm sorry, I'm referencing the project that I've already completed, so I don't spend 4 hours wasting your time. And the reason that I added a specific IDs to this one is we're going to be applying margins to each of these. Let's go back, margins to each of these boxes, but I don't want to have any right margin on this third box, so that's why I added that div. Okay, that ends Tier 2, so let's work on our final tier. So Tier 3 is going, let me Control-Alt-C to move back. And Tier 3 is going to be this Have a Question, Classes, which looks like I got rid of the text, and News. So let's work on that right now. We'll start out with, let's add a div with an ID of Questions, Classes. And question. Now, truth be told, this is probably not a smart div name, because if somebody's going to be purchasing this, there's a good chance they'll be changing that. So keep that in mind, especially if you're designing templates that can be altered. This kind of name may not be the best, and I do apologize for that. Within my questions classes, I put in another div, and that will become, I'll explain that a little bit later, but to be perfectly honest, I just don't remember. I'm sure there's a reason for it. ID is going to be have a question, once again, so we can add that icon to the heading 3 tag. Have a question. And now we're going to build our simple input form, and it's just going to have a name, email, question, and a button. I do this so much, I don't know how many of these stupid forms I've made. So P, I'm going to add a small tag once again, and we're going to do name. And then after the small tag, we'll put in our input field. Input type equals text, name equals name. So let's copy and paste this. And we need 4. The last we're going to have email, and then questions / comments. And for questions comments, we don't want an input field specifically. We should put in a text area. Name is going to be questions. Rows is going to be 5. Columns is going to be 20. May change that. And let's change the name for the email text box. And then finally, we don't need an input. We don't need a text field. We need a submit. And name is going to be submit as well. And the value for that button is going to be go. And I can get rid of my small tag because the value will be inside the button, so we don't need a label as well. So that takes care of the contact form. Next, let's work on that div below it, the classes, that has that image. You can see it right here. We're going to work on this. So div ID, actually no div, no ID for that one. And we'll do h3 ID equals classes, and let's give it a value of classes. And then below it, I'm going to add just that image that I have, and it's images / seminar.jpg. Alt is seminar. Okay, and that ends the question classes div. So now I'm going to create a new div called news. So div ID equals news. Ends news. Okay, and within news, we'll start out with an h3 block, and we'll give it a value of news blog. And let me go over what we're going to have. We're going to have this, we have our h3 tag for news blog, and then I'm going to have a heading 2 tag, and then this date, and then a bunch of static text as well as my logo. So let's go in, do h2, should your entire staff attend. And I'm going to put the date within a span tag, that should be fine. And I have November 4, 2008. And then finally, all I need to do is add my paragraph information. So I will start, and we're just going to take this, copy all of it. I'm going to hit Control-C on the PC to copy it and bring it back. We'll open up some p tags and paste it in. And that's what it has for me, so I'm just going to do a little bit of quick cleanup. Let's close that out, open it, close it out, and open it. And then once again, with Visual Studio, I'm going to select the whole thing, right-click, and hit Format Selection. And that takes care of that text. Now all I need to do is add in my logo. So we will add it let's say right here. Image source is going to be equal to images/jw.jpg. Whoops, images/jw logo.jpg. Alt Jeffrey Way. So I'm going to move over. Oops, I already typed that. and I'm going to give it a class of FR for float right. Some of you are very against this. I'm going to rename my this image right here. Once again, some of you are very against giving classes float left or float right. I could go both ways on that subject. To be perfectly honest, though, I've found it saves me so much time if I have these classes. And that's the point. You know, we don't want to nitpick too much where nothing gets accomplished because we're conforming and we are spending hours and hours changing something so it validates even though it works perfectly, you know. So, for instance, I'm going to be having a few browser stylings to add rounded corners to some of the divs. And as a result, it's not going to validate when we do so, but everything that needs to validate will. So there's no point in changing the document if I know it works perfectly. So let's scroll down. We have in news. I thought I already wrote that. Oh no, I made a mistake. Let me just copy this. I'm sorry. I'm sure some of you saw this happening and you're like, what's he doing? Let's copy that. Copy that. Cut it out. Get rid of this ends news, and I'm going to paste it in right below news blog. So sorry about that. So we have our classes, and then we have the news blog that I've pasted that in. And we can cut that out. So we have end news, end tier 3, end main content, and then finally all we need is our footer. So div id equals footer, end footer. And within the footer, for now, I'm just going to put designed and coded by Jeffrey Way. And in footer. And one nice bonus of the footer is that it'll allow us to clear everything to make sure that our container contains its content. So let's go ahead and view this in the browser and see what we end up with. So I'm going to right click here in Visual Studio and go to Browse With, and I'm going to browse with Firefox. That's my development platform of choice. Okay, so this is what we end up with our bare document. So we have our heading, we have our events, our sidebar, and then our main content. And this is exactly how we want it to be. So I'm going to go to Tools in the Web Developer toolbar that you can download. Just Google it. And I'm going to hit Validate Local HTML. Just make sure that I did everything correctly. It's always good to make sure you're not searching for some bug because you forgot to close something out. And it's perfect XHTML. So the next step is to go in and apply the CSS.